Welcome back, guys. Some revision. We did the ACI authentication token using Postman to verify that we can get a token back. What we're going to do today is we're going to create a brand new version of that. But instead of using Postman, we will be using Python directly to just get a token returned. So let's go through that and let's take it step by step. The links we used previously in the Postman video will still be used, so if you missed that, you can just catch it from that video or from the description of this video, which will be posted. Okay, so let's take it away. Okay, so let's see, the first thing we need to do is we need to go to the previous environments. So here's the APIC, and we're going to be using some of this information. I prefer a different version of how to interact with requests, but you will see. We'll build it step by step and make it work and handle any errors that might come up. So the first section, let's go and grab up until there. Copy. Or we'll just build it and I'll show you how it's done. Okay, so the new file is, we're going to call it login.py. The reason I call it a .py at the end is so that the system knows that this is a Python file. Let's paste this and we take out a bunch of the information that we are not going to need. So first of all, this is a base URL. Then we've got a payload, username, password, jump. Okay, so we're just reading this quickly. Okay, so we're going to change this base URL into our URL that we want to use, which is over here. Actually, all the way up to API. Copy. That is what we're going to be using. The username was admin, and the password was this Cisco PSDT. Okay, now that we've got this, we've concatenated AAA login onto it. Post response is URL data. So we're going to change this section of it. So let's take all of this out and we are going to change that into a try catch block. So let's start with a try and we say response is equal to request dot request. Inside of this request, now we state what are we going to do. So this is a post. It is going to use a URL. So just call it URL. We are going to be passing a header in, or headers. In this case, we only have one, but we'll create it a bit cleaner than this. Headers. Let's see, the next thing we need to do is we need some sort of payload, which is data is equal to a payload. We need a timeout. set to, let's say, 2 seconds, and a verify set to false. False. The reason we set verify to false is for the simple fact that a lot of companies that implement Cisco ACI into their networks or data centers, they don't have SSL certificates for these servers. So we don't want to verify an SSL certificate if we don't have one. So we should also get a warning about this, which we can suppress. We'll go through that as soon as we get that. Accept, we're going to accept, let's say, any exception and just print out a generic error for now. Error code. Okay. Then after this, we need to take the data from here. The data is the JSON.load text. And we are going to print that data out. So let's print a JSON.dumps of the data, and we indent by 4 and sort keys to true. Okay, not sure if we got everything. Let's quickly check. The easiest way to do this is to run the file and see where we go wrong. So error occurred. Okay. This might actually hinder us a bit. So let's just take the try and catch out for now. So we can read the errors and make sure what we're actually doing wrong. Okay, URL is not defined. That is fine. We just change this into the actual URL. Save. Headers is not defined. Okay, so the header, that's also not a problem. We create header into a dictionary. And in the dictionary, we're going to say content type is equal to application JSON. Save. Let's clear this and run. Okay, name payload is not defined. So we named it something else. Let's just put that in there. Let's call this pre-payload. Pre-payload, and we call this payload. Okay, there we go. We are seeing the token that we want to see. Okay, so the main thing is now that we need to read this object. So we want to get a token. The first thing about this is that in order for us to use this token in the future, it's going to be have to be in a dictionary format. So we're going to create an empty dictionary, and then we're going to say token colon, and I think it was APIC cookie. Yes, it is APIC cookie. APIC cookie is equal to data. So if we read this here, it's IM data. The next is a list. So we have to pass in an integer, and it is the first object in the integer, because if I'm not mistaken, it only has one object in that integer. Yes, total count of 1. Okay, then we want to get AAA login, and we want to get attributes, and then we want to specifically get the token. Okay, now that we've got token set, we want to print our token. Okay, save. Let's hash this out so that we don't get too much back. Okay, perfect. Here we get APIC cookie is equal to the token that we just used to log in with. Now, as I said before, we have a warning of the URL lib3, so we're going to suppress that because we don't want to verify an SSL certificate. So let's import URL lib3. And then we do URL lib3 disable warnings. And inside this, we specify the exception of insecure request warning. Save. We verified that that is working now quickly. Perfect. That's exactly what we want to see. Okay, now we're going to change this into a recallable function. So we first define login, and the request is going to take a URL, a username, and a password. So all of this is now going to be inside our function by just tabbing it once. And the first thing is we want to do is we want to get this out. So our URL here is going to be equal to that. The next thing is we're going to need a username. It's equal to admin, and our password is equal to the Cisco PSDT. Okay, so we go to this section and we pull it out and call it, let's call it APIC URL, and we format this string. So format APIC URL is equal to URL, meaning that this URL, right, is going to be equal to that URL which is passed, which is a variable that's passed in. Then we need to do the same for the username and password, but now we need to structure this so it's a bit easier to read and edit. So let's create this into different lines. Okay, that should be a bit better. So now we need to, this is our username. So we're going to say variable user name dot format username is equal to username. This is our password. Dot format is equal to password. Password equal to password. Okay, so now we've got that part sorted out. That seems to be it. Now we, instead of printing the token, we want to return the token. And we're going to create the entry point for the file to be if name equals main, and we are going to be calling this login. So just to verify that we are seeing the token, I'm going to encapsulate this all into a print function. And verify username password. Okay, that seems to be correct. Let's see if we get what we are expecting. Okay, perfect. That's what we want to see. Okay, the next section we need to do out of good practice is to take all of this, tab it once, and put this in a try-catch block. Try. And if that fails, then we need to handle exceptions. And let's print the generic error occurred. Okay, save. Verify that we are working again. Okay, that section has been done complete successfully. This section is not necessary anymore. I usually keep it there just for troubleshooting purposes if I have to come back anytime. So that just needs to be over there because that's where it's relevant into this section that's underneath that data. Okay, so now that this is finished, we have successfully gone and logged into the APIC using a Python script, and we have retrieved the token and set it to the correct dictionary item or JSON object that is called APIC cookie. This is what we'll be using in the next video in order to turn this into to use this token in order to create a tenant.